Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the Bears' big victory against the Carolina Panthers, despite Matt Nagy's play calling. And we'll be talking about the White Sox managerial search, which might lead to somebody older than our future president. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season is not going on right now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for season tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, I know you watched this game, and I feel like I'm going to lose my mind with this team.
I know. I mean, this team is 5-1. They're now in first place, but I mean, like watching every game, it's like pulling teeth, especially when it comes down to crunch time. You know what's too bad is the Bears started off pretty well. I'd say the first half, they overall played some pretty dang good football. And then, in the second half, yeah, they made some big plays, there's no doubt, but it's always got to be interesting. It can't be just a nice, easy blowout because, I mean, look, if there was just a few different things that went differently in that game, it would have been an easy win for the Bears. But there were a few calls that were missed or miscalled. There were a few plays that were not made or should not have been made. And there were some coaching decisions that made you want to just put a cheese grater over your face on repeat.
Yeah, so, I mean, the preview going into this game was the Bears have trouble stopping the run. I mean, comparatively to the way that overall their defense, they have, you can run on them a little bit. And the Carolina Panthers were a team that were having a lot of success with Mike Davis running the ball. And then the other side, it was a Carolina defense that you can drive a truck through, and the Bears run game, which is poor. And you're like, okay, something's got to give in this game. And you saw several successful runs by Carolina, but overall the pass pressure was so great, it sort of forced them to abandon the run a bit. So the Bears got the victory on that side, but Carolina just absolutely just shut down the Bears running attack and forced them to be a one-dimensional offense.
Yeah, I mean, the O-line had another really bad game. I mean, they did not open up any holes for Dave Montgomery. And I know people want to look at Dave Montgomery's stats and be like, oh, well, he's not that good. It's like, well, if we actually watch Dave Montgomery on those plays, there are times where he gets 1 or 2 yards, and what he does, the way he's kind of able to maneuver or bounce, it's actually kind of impressive that he's able to get 1 or 2 yards, because if you were running up the gut with somebody a bit slower, like, I'm a huge Jordan Howard guy, but if Jordan Howard tried to run with that offensive line, he'd be losing yards. So when you don't have a line that could block, it's hard to establish a run. Because if they could have established a run after getting on the board very early, the tone of this game, even though the Bears won, it could have been a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, we all know the Bears defense is a really good defense, arguably one of the best in the NFL, statistic wise or eyeball test wise. It's hard to deny it, especially when look at the level of talent they've faced. The Ravens don't have a very good record, but it's a very good offense.
Mm-hmm.
And they held them down. The Lions, very good offense, held them down. Buccaneers just dropped 38 on the Green Bay Packers. Bears shut them down.
When you said Ravens, I assume you mean Falcons.
Falcons, I'm sorry, Falcons. They're both ugly birds that I don't like. And the Falcons, 1-5, Bears shut down that offense, which is really good. And today ran roughshod on the Minnesota Vikings. So the Bears have been taking care of business. And today it's, you look at Teddy Bridgewater and he's completing 70% of his passes, and he's, the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, and look what he's doing, and blah, blah, blah. And the Bears took care of business there too. This defense is really good, but this offense is absolute dog shit.
Yep. I mean, it's things that we say as a Bears fan every year. I mean, really, great defense, dog shit offense. Now, here's what I believe. I truly believe this. If the Bears had a good offensive line and Matt Nagy was smarter with play calling, this offense, it wouldn't be elite, but it could at least be solid. I mean, you have some talented guys on the offense. I think Dave Montgomery is a very solid player. If you give him some holes, he'll make some things happen. Allen Robinson is obviously a really good target. I got to say, Jimmy Graham, who I really did not like that signing, but so far he's impressed well. We finally saw Cole Kmet. Oh, thank God. I still think he's got what it takes to be an effective player in the NFL. And then, you got Mooney, who looks like something legit. So it's not like there's zero talent on the offensive side of the ball. It's just you don't have enough pieces. We're going to talk about the quarterback later. We know the quarterback situation. We know what it is. And, that's obviously an X factor that hasn't really been fully solved, I don't think. I mean, you know what you're going to get in Nick Foles, and you're going to get inconsistency, and you have a bad offensive line. When you have several of those big things going against you, your offense is just not going to work, and it's hard to keep saying, let's see what they do next week. Let's see what they do next week. After a while, it's just like, well, if it doesn't get much better, we can't really expect it to get much better at this point. So this is just kind of how I feel what this team is going to be. I don't see anything drastically changing with the way this team plays going forward.
Let's just jump right into the quarterback play. I start to wonder how much of it is on the quarterback and how much of it is Matt Nagy's play calling and the offensive scheme that they're implementing. I'm starting, I wanted to drive the bus and throwing Mitch out of town, but you bring in Nick Foles, and you're still seeing a lot of the same things, and you're still not seeing a running game. You're still not seeing good protection from the offensive line. You're still seeing the weird play calling that doesn't make sense. And Matt Nagy keeps saying, well, they're not running the offense the way he wants. But maybe it's his offense that's the problem. Sure, you got to hit open receivers, but you're looking, and when you don't establish a running game and you don't have any explosive plays, you're really setting your quarterback up for failure. You're making them be perfect because Because all right, you look at it on when you're in the red zone. You can play a different style of defense because you don't have to worry about somebody going over the top of you. You get a boundary there of the end line of the end zone, and it's kind of like that with the Bears offense. They don't have any explosive players or any explosive plays, so you don't have to worry about going over the top. So they're going to jump every route underneath. They're going to take risks because they know nothing's going to go. They're not going to have any big plays. Going into this game, do you know how many players that if you looked at yards after the catch,
Mm-hmm.
in the top 114 players with yards after the catch, do you know how many of them were Bears?
None.
Two.
Better than I thought, but that's still not good.
It was David Montgomery
That makes
and
sense.
Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to guess two, those would be the ones I'd guess. It certainly isn't Anthony Miller, who, oh boy, I've been high on Anthony Miller for a while, but just too many basic mistakes, man.
Anthony Miller's a weird case. Like talent-wise, he's got it. He's got the talent. It's how do you get the mental aspect of the game in it? And here's what's happening is he started off bad in the season, and it's just you're watching him just disintegrate, and he's getting time taken away from him. And when he gets
you see more to Darnell Mooney, and then him.
You see, when he does get in, that he's pressing, trying to make something big happen, and he makes a big mistake. Like today, he cost the Bears a first down on a big play.
And who knows what could have happened on that drive? If you get a first down, you keep moving, you could have put the Panthers in a big hole early.
Yeah, so you just gotta play smarter. And Darnell Mooney is taking playing time away from him because he's doing the things he needs to do. He's making those catches. He's playing well. And Anthony Miller was targeted 3 times today for 3 receptions for 8 yards. And Darnell Mooney was targeted almost twice as many times.
Yeah, I think that says a lot, and I think it is kind of mental. It is. I think it is in his head a little bit because, like you said, you see the talent and the potential. The athleticism is there for sure. You see the snippets of it. I mean, he's got some of the biggest touchdown catches of the year, and he's caught a few of those game winners. So it is weird. Like you said, it's a weird case, and you really want for him to, if he's just better at making the right plays and having the right football IQ, falling forward for a first down instead of trying to do too much and costing yourself a first down, being able to catch those over-the-shoulder balls that are supposed to land right into your chest. You get more consistency from that than, I think that you get better as time goes on. You get confidence, but, if Darnell Mooney's the one that's working out better, I mean, it's not preseason. You're not going to just try to keep working until he gets it. You're going to go with what's working.
You have to. I mean, you played the easy part of your schedule, and you done what you're supposed to do, but you need to play the players that are making the plays. And right now, it's not Anthony Miller. It's Darnell Mooney, and it's Allen Robinson. Those are the 2 guys that you're getting the best performances of. They're getting the most targets.
And Riley Ridley continues to just lie in the corner covered in cobwebs.
Yeah, so targets in this game by wide receiver. 9 for Allen Robinson, 5 for Darnell Mooney, 3 for Anthony Miller. Targets by running backs, 5 by David Montgomery, 1 by Cordero Patterson, and then 10 targets to tight ends. which I want to see more of that. I want to see more targets to the tight ends, but something a little deeper, because you saw, Jimmy Graham did all right. Cole Kmet was 2 for 2 or 20 yards in that big touchdown. But going back to my point with Matt Nagy's play calling is, I was looking at NFL's next gen stats, and if you look at the average yards after the catch per reception, so basically just the total number of yards after the catch divided by the number of receptions. And Allen Robinson leads the Bears, and he is not in the top 70 of receivers.
Oh, my.
Not in the top 70.
Oh, my.
So that tells you, like, the Bears, when they do catch the ball, it's, there's a defender right there, and the play is being made right there. You don't have yards after the catch. You're not opening up guys with your play calling. So you have to look at Matt Nagy's play calling. And, as a layperson, you can say, obviously you can identify certain things, like at the end of the game when you're trying to run the clock down and seal a victory, and instead of running the ball and forcing the team to use their last timeout, you throw the ball, get an incomplete pass, and give them a free timeout. And you did it back-to-back weeks after you got beat up about it. And you're just like, don't you learn? Matt Nagy did not, not that I heard, he did not own up to any of the mistakes being his. Is he beat up the rest of his team that they need to be better, they need to execute this offense. It's, at what point is it Matt Nagy's issue? I think Matt Nagy's a very good head coach.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I don't think he's a very good offensive coordinator.
I agree. That's exactly how I feel. You can, make distinguishes between the two. You can be a good head coach in terms of, establishing a culture, getting the guys together, having a work ethic. Because look, the culture is as good as we've seen it. The work ethic is very good because, they don't give up and they're winning games. I mean, Matt Nagy has 25 wins now as Bears head coach in 2.5 years. I mean, that right there can tell you what kind of a coach he is in terms of being a head coach and a boss. But the play calling it's atrocious. It is just beyond atrocious. When they had that third down and they were trying to run out the clock, I said, they're going to try to throw it. It's going to be incomplete, and they're going to have to punt it, and they're going to have their timeout. Now, here's another thing. You brought up the yards after the play, after the catch. Here's another thing that is really key about what you just said. The Bears don't get the extra yards. And so many plays are in front of the first down sticks. So, you got a 3rd and 8, you throw for 6 yards, and you can't get any additional yards. Well, there you go. Now it's 4th down again. How many times have we seen that?
And you know what? And there's plays where that's okay when you open it up and you allow the person catching the ball to have space to make the play. So if you give them, open field and they catch a 5-yard pass and they've got to get 10, and you give them an open field to make a move and get that, okay, then, that's okay. We can live with that. But if you're making them break a tackle immediately as soon as they catch it in order to fall forward and hopefully get it, that's a different story. So, you have to put your players and your playmakers in position to make plays, and the Bears aren't doing that. They need to take more deep shots. They need to complete more deep shots. They need to be able to do that to open up the running game, to make this a better passing team. Part of it is Matt Nagy's play calling. Part of it is the fact that they keep everything so close to the line of scrimmage. And today, you were not seeing effective running from the Bears. And there was a short stretch where they started using short passes as in lieu of the running game. And you saw some good things from it, not great things, but you saw some good things, and you're like, okay, why are they not doing that anymore? Why are they stopping? And they just go away from it. Last game, you saw some good things from the Bears offense when they moved to the running the wheel route from the receiver from the backfield, and it opened it up. It created a big opportunity. And the Bears, I don't think they ran a single one today. It's like Matt Nagy tries to outthink himself. If you looked early on when the Bears scored that touchdown, they scored that touchdown and basically saved themselves from Matt Nagy.
It looked like it was going to be another, here we go, we got to sail for a field goal.
Yeah. You had the call a timeout on the first offensive series they gave you the ball in the red zone. You had to call a timeout because you couldn't get your play in on time and get in the formation, and you were about to have a delay of game. And you come out of the timeout and you have a delay of game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was I wanted to bang my head with a pot. I was like screaming, like, are we really doing this? We get a huge defensive play, then you got to burn a timeout, and then you got to delay a game. It was maddening.
Yeah, the timeouts didn't end up being important, but you don't know that. You don't know that.
You don't want to burn your timeout within the first few minutes.
Yeah. You want to use timeouts smartly, and that's just not a smart timeout. If you can't get your play in, is Matt Nagy needs to know what his plays are, and I can guarantee you, I would put money on it. What happened is he scripted his plays for the first 15 plays, but he was so thrown off by the fact that the Bears defense got them in the red zone right off the bat that he had to switch gears and was not ready to switch gears. And I guarantee that's what happened. And that's on Matt Nagy. We said it multiple times during the offseason is that, Matt Nagy went and rewatched tape and tried to be a better coach. And then I'm starting to question he's demanding things from players that he's not doing himself.
Maybe.
You
can't help but wonder.
Yeah, you got to expect better out of Matt Nagy. You need him to be able to learn from his mistakes and get better as a play caller if he's going to keep that play calling duties.
Yeah, agreed.
Like part of me is just like, maybe that would be not that I wish COVID on somebody, but what if he got tested positive? It was a false positive, but it was too late to retest him and he couldn't be with the team. And you had to see what happened when he couldn't call the plays for a game. Just to see what happens.
You know what I say? I say switch the microphones and have one of his offensive gurus secretly calling the plays, and Nagy just thinks he's calling the plays.
I don't think we have any offensive gurus on this team, but, that is a funny idea.
Because, he thinks it's happening. Though, what he's calling and what they're calling wouldn't line up. But if it was working, you just kind of keep going with it. But, yeah, I just missing progress in the play calling department, but, we're not. And it's kind of sad that so much of what Matt Nagy does is a bit predictable at this point. Like I said, I knew they were going to pass on that third down when they shouldn't have, and I knew that we were going to have to punt the ball away without burning any clock and having them keep a timeout. Luckily, we got that interception right away to seal the game, but, that's been the theme all year. Defense bails out Matt Nagy. Now, yeah, the play calling's an issue. Yeah, the O-line's an issue. But I do want to talk a little bit about Nick Foles because, he had a pretty nice rhythm going on early, I'd say. It wasn't like going crazy or anything, but he had a nice little rhythm going. But boy, what really bothered me and what I'm sure bothered other people was when the Bears got that turnover and had a chance to really, really create some separation, good field position. I think it was inside the 30. As soon as you saw him throw that ball as he's getting hit, you knew it was going to get picked off.
Absolutely.
That was an awful, awful, awful play.
And here's the exact thinking of it. And this goes back to your point of Matt Nagy being predictable. And what happened was they got the turnover, and I said it to my daughter was sitting here next to me watching the game, and I told her, I was like, watch, the guy from the Bears is going to try to throw a deep pass on this one. And lo and behold, there he goes, because they followed the age-old adage of after a turnover, you take a deep shot to the end zone. And I'm like, Matt Nagy's going to do that. And lo and behold, boom, there he makes the attempt, and the pressure was there. And rather than just throw it away, Nick Foles just threw it up for grabs. And it was so infuriating because I knew what they were going to do. And so they telegraphed what they were going to do. The Panthers were prepared for it, and Nick Foles threw it under pressure and should have just thrown it away.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that should have. Yep.
It was a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, it was. And, that could have, like I said, that really could have created some separation. It could have been the difference between an easy win and another heart attack win. Because I think if you would have gotten a touchdown there, or at least a field goal, then the Panthers would really, really kind of just not feel completely out or defeated, but that would have been a real gut punch for them. And I mean, that was a whole weird sequence on what happened. Turnover, then turnover that was ruled not a turnover. But,
we'll get to that.
Absolutely. But, I mean, Nick Foles today, he did what he did. Like I said, I thought he had a nice rhythm early. Nice strike to Cole Kmet in the end zone for his first career NFL touchdown. That was nice. He was actually able to pick up a first down with his legs, even though he looked like he was like a guy with like ants in his pants, and he had trying to squeeze himself together while still trying to run, and he finally got that first down. So it wasn't a pretty run, but hey, he got that first down. But other than that awful mistake, he wasn't spectacular. He wasn't god-awful. He just kind of did basic Nick Foles things. I don't really have much else to say. I mean, again, the play calling dictated some of it. The lack of offensive line protection dictated some of it. What I do give him props for, it's something that you might see other people crumble under. You had the bad turnover, and the defense was able to get that stop, which was obviously big. And, he didn't let that get to him. He was able to just kind of regroup when he came back out, and he didn't completely lose his composure. And that's a good thing about Nick Foles, is that he's not going to let things get to him mentally.
Yeah, that's the thing with Nick Foles, is you're not gonna get to him. You're not gonna rattle him. But he does get. I mean, basically this game was like a microcosm of his career. Is you saw him do some good things where he got in rhythm and he sliced up the defense and threw that really nice touchdown pass. But then just the boneheaded play for the interception, you saw him be able to understand this offense and go no huddle and do some good things. But then, he became one dimensional, and he sort of, he's not gonna
looking down some of his guys.
He's looking, he looked down some receivers today.
Oh yeah.
And you see things that he's doing where he's standing in the pocket too long, and So it was a meh game. It was a meh game, basically.
I mean, his stats are the definition of meh. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 198 yards. I mean, that's very definition of a meh game. You know, if there is one play with Nick Foles and Matt Nagy, I'm going to compliment them on for being the right call. That was getting the QB sneak for the touchdown. That was a good call, perfect spot to do it, and they executed it. So I'm glad that worked out.
That was such a Matt Nagy thing to get the way of getting a touchdown. Is you're right there, and you can't just punch it in with a run. Your run block schemes, which started out the first couple of games, you're like, oh man, I think maybe we're turning the corner here, and then they've just absolutely shit the bed.
Hey, we thought we got it for a sec, right?
Yeah, and then it takes how many runs to be able to get into the end zone, and you end up having to do a quarterback sneak, and you're
pulling
like,
teeth.
Geez, it is pulling teeth, absolutely pulling teeth.
Yeah, exactly. You know what else I found really funny too today was when they were on offense and you saw them trying to swing out with Montgomery and he was just going nowhere. And then you saw Mike Davis able to swing out and get yards. And every time Mike Davis got yards, they said former Chicago Bear Mike Davis, and trying to play it up as this big hype revenge game. It's like, okay, before this game, most Bears fans forgot Mike Davis was even a thing on this team. I mean, last year, he played 7 total games for the Bears, 11 rushing attempts, 25 yards, no touchdowns. That was literally his entire Bears career, and yet it was hyped as this revenge game. And I thought that was dumb and weird.
You know what's crazy? I looked at his stats, and they were actually it made me feel like my eyes were deceiving me. Is what do you think his average yards per carry was in that game?
Mike Davis's?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess like 3.8 or something.
2.
Maybe a little less.
2.9.
Really?
I would have guessed it would have been like 4.5 because you saw like not a ton of big runs, but consistently getting like
chunks of yards. Yeah,
chunks of yards, and you're like, oh my god! But he ended up only rushing for 52 yards on 18 attempts.
I guess maybe part of that is the fact that there were some plays later on where the Bears were able to bottle him up behind the line of scrimmage. I'm sure that hurt the stats a little bit, but early on it looked like he was getting into a pretty good rhythm.
And that's kind of the thing is, the Bears in situations where sure they've been gashed a little bit gashed as much as you can gash a good defense. But what happens is when it comes passing downs, they really get after the quarterback, and then you sort of get away from the running game because you're like, well, we've got to pick up bigger chunks of yards than this, because the Bears defense is good enough to stonewall you with the run. And if you don't pick up those first downs and you get into a 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, they pin their ears back. And even if they're not getting the sacks, man, did they get pressure. And this is a team, Teddy Bridgewater in his last 3 games was only sacked 1 time.
Yeah.
And if you take away the first game of the season when he got sacked 5 times, like this, he's only been sacked a handful of times all season long. And the Bears got to him today 4 times.
And hey, that final game-sealing interception, they had the pressure on him. They were all up in his face. They were closing in on him.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, the Bears have been able to generate pressure up front, and that's been huge. And we're going to need to see that going into this tough part of the schedule, where we're facing legitimate contenders for the NFC title, And we need to be able to generate that pass rush to stay in these games, because our offense, I don't feel confident our offense is going to put up points. I mean, statistically, you look at this Bears offense, and we are at the bottom of the league in points per game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at today, leading tackler Roquan Smith, he had a really good game. Kyle Fuller had a great game, and unfortunately, he comes along with a big yellow flag with him, which I think is beyond ridiculous. I thought Eddie Jackson had a good game too. Again, play that was called back, which is a shame. He's had 2 pick sixes called back this year. So the stats don't look as good as they should be. Really, to me, the only defender that really struggled today, well, I mean, I wouldn't say the only one, but the one that really stood out today was Jalen Johnson. He had a bit of a rough game today.
He did. And he got some help from bad officiating, but he did have some struggles today. And, I'm not necessarily that concerned.
Oh, I'm not either.
I think he's going to be a good one. And, the downside of him is he the fastest guy? No, but he's a good corner. Mm-hmm. And, he was covering a lot of times a guy with a lot of speed all day long, and gave him some room. But there was some times he had some good defense and just ball was placed perfectly.
Yep.
And he was the recipient of a really bad defensive pass interference call, right at that led to a touchdown.
Awful.
It was so bad. He has every right to go for that. He had better position. He was turned to get the ball, and those two had the hands on each other. I would say more so the wide receiver had his hand rather than the other way around.
It could have been OPI.
Yeah. And they'll never in a million years call that OPI. They called it a defensive pass interference, and that was bad.
And of course the announcer's like, oh, that's a great call. Her.
Those announcers were terrible. I tweeted out, I was like, I'm not sure which is worse, the officiating or the announcing. And another one I'm going to talk about is on the interception, which would have been the third straight play of a turnover that Eddie Jackson would have had the touchdown. They called that defensive pass interference, saying that Fuller got there too soon. But if you looked at the play where Allen Robinson would have caught a ball for a first down towards the goal line and got the guy came over his back, and the announcer said, oh, well, they were making a play on the ball. He went over his back, and they didn't call that a pass interference. They didn't even do anything. But then they call it on the Bears. It was infuriating. Like, it's, if they're going to call that, call it across the board. It's the inconsistency. There's if you're going to make mistakes, but the consistency needs to be there. It's either a flag for everybody in every situation, or it's not a penalty. And it was mind-boggling. I was losing my mind. So that play was a huge difference maker on both sides, because the Bears would have had first and goal if they would have called that a pass interference with Allen Robinson.
Which it clearly, it was worse than the one they called against the Bears, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And then the other one, so it was potentially a 14-point swing. And then the pass interference on Jalen Johnson was bad. And it's absolutely infuriating of the inconsistent and bad play calling. Officiating that you're seeing in the NFL, and not, it was really bad in this Bears game, but you watch around the league. How does a league that is this big with this much money, this much attendance, and like viewership, and this important, how can't you get officiating right?
And how does Mike Pereira look at shoulder to shoulder and be like, "Oh yeah, great call. He hit his helmet with his helmet."
Where? I watched that play 400 times, and it was the same play as last week, and they huddled up, and it was not a penalty. Why? It's like they give the flag immediately to Kyle Fuller. He gets no benefit of the doubt, but he intentionally does the shoulder to shoulder. It's mind-boggling. That, like, Ryan Pace needs to just take this video and shove it right up Goodell's ass and be like, take a look at that. Your officiating sucks.
The other thing that drove me crazy too was the fact that I don't know why this drove me crazy. It wasn't, obviously in control of the officiating, but on two of those really controversial plays, why did Fox just try to keep going without showing the replay for a while? And then some of the angles they showed, you barely saw anything. It was almost, I'm not saying it was, but it was almost intentionally not trying to show blatantly shitty calls. Like that. I think it was, I don't know if it was the Jalen Johnson one, but there was one of those controversial calls where they did not show the replay. It's like, show the replay. I want to see that again. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, but I do know when they called back David Montgomery's touchdown run, and they came out with Mike Pereira, and he was like, well, they called it a touchdown on the field, and you can't really see where his arm goes down, and then you've got this view where, you see his arm down, but you can't tell where the ball is, and they're like, and magic, they just pieced it together and decided that it was correct. And you're like, well, why can't you show me that? Do they have magic views that we don't see? I was like, if you have to splice together multiple camera angles at the same time, where, you time slice it, how do I know that those camera angles are perfectly aligned in timing? I don't get to see this. They're making that decision and just telling me that it's right. No. Was he down? Probably, but I don't think there was enough to overturn it. And that goes back to inconsistency. If in the rules you have decided that with instant replay, it's the play when you review it, it has to be substantial evidence to overturn it. Otherwise, you have to go with what's called on the field. And they don't do that. They just change their mind arbitrarily based on what they think they're seeing in the video. It looked like he was down in the video, but there was no conclusive evidence that he was down.
They got to have more angles on those reviews that we don't see.
But why don't we see those? Because they should be getting the views from the TV station. We should have the same views.
Well, it's all a government conspiracy, and if you wear your tinfoil hat, you will be able to see the different angles.
No, I just feel like they don't follow their own rules, and that's just the bothersome part. If it's, well, the ruling on the field stands unless we have substantial evidence to overturn it, then do that. And if they would have called that not a touchdown on the field, I would have said the same thing. You know what? There was not enough evidence to overturn that was a touchdown run. But it was based on the fact of the initial ruling on the field. And that's my frustration with the NFL officiating, is it's so wildly inconsistent. And instant replay sometimes makes it worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I was so worked up. It's frustrating when your team is the recipient of bad calls against them. In every game, you're going to have calls against your team that are wrong, because this is a really poorly officiated league. But when the big ones are overwhelmingly against you, it gets really frustrating, especially when they're just wrong.
Yeah.
How many missed hold calls on Khalil Mack? How many just weak sauce roughing the passers? How many unnecessary roughness calls against Kyle Fuller or pass interference that led to interceptions? It's just so frustrating because they're just inconsistent week from week. Show me the play today where Kyle Fuller hit that guy. Show me the one when he got the fumble that was ruled after a review that it was indeed a legal hit and a fumble. What was the difference? Show me what the difference was. I dare the NFL to, with a straight face, try to explain to me why those were different and how one violated the NFL rules.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too. And look, not every call is going to be right. You know, human nature, everything's happening so fast. Calls are going to be missed. We all know that. Nobody's perfect. No official is perfect. There's going to be issues. But when you have a game where the same things happen and the calls are different for each team, that's when it's truly a problem. And it's a problem when the rules aren't clear, so you're basically just flipping a coin, and those decisions can decide the entire outcomes of a game. That should not happen.
I mean, I guess my point is I understand fully that this is such a bang type play sometimes, and you have your officials in the field of play, and they're trying to maneuver themselves not to get run over, not to get in the way of the play, and still be able to see things. I get it, but why in the world can't they hire more officials then?
Yeah, they got to make some changes here just for it to be better. They just do.
And why are their officials not full-time officials? Like in the off season, they should all of their officials should be full-time. Like that's their job. And in the off season and during the week when they're not actually officiating a game, they shouldn't be allowed to work another job. They should be training, watching video, watching tapes, having meetings, discussing, well, what happened here? Why did this play get called here? But you on the same play earlier in the game or in another game got called differently. They should be reviewing. They should just be constantly in classrooms discussing, so everybody is calling things as equally as possible. That's not the way it works. What it is these officials, a lot of them have other jobs and they go and they officiate these games, and sure they have some trainings here and there, but it's just not enough. That there should be more consistency, which should be more training and more officials on the field.
I'd love to know what some of those refs do as other jobs. Like, what do they do in the off season? Like, what are their other jobs that they have? I'd love to know. I've always wanted to know that.
Ed Hockley was a lawyer.
Really? I had no idea.
I mean, he's probably retired now, but so that guy was making a big chunk of change as a lawyer.
I was going to say, that guy's got to be loaded.
And then what do NFL officials make? NFL official salary. They make, the average NFL referee makes $205,000 a year.
Jesus.
And he probably made more than that because of his tenure.
Yeah.
And so,
you don't need another job, man.
So that guy's probably making another 150 as a lawyer. So it probably, I'm going to say $400,000 a year that guy's raking in.
Dude, like you could just work 16 games a year and then maybe if you're on the playoffs, you do the playoffs. So you're working like once a week from like September to January. You're making like six figures, and then the rest of the year you can do whatever the hell you want. That sounds like the life.
Ed Hockley, the former NFL official, his net worth is estimated to be $6 million.
Damn.
As an official.
Damn.
you pay these guys a lot. Make them earn that. Make them be accountable. Make them have a system where you reward them and punish them. If you don't do a good job, or have them base pay and you get rewarded with salary for doing a good job and score these games, go through and be like, okay, missed call here. And if you have a certain percentage of good calls, you get bonus pay. So it's financially incentive for you to correctly call these games. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to accomplish, equality in officiating in this $8 billion a year league.
Oh, you'd think.
Yeah. So the NFL in 2018, the NFL earned over $8.1 billion in revenue.
It really put in perspective this year just how huge the NFL is, because when all the sports were coming back, we had baseball come back, and we had playoffs for basketball and hockey all going on at the same time. But the NFL was top dog still. Everyone was talking about week one and all the games, all the highlights, all the sports shows. NFL was number one. Even with NBA playoffs and, baseball heading down the stretch. I mean, the NFL was they were just far and away the number one thing. And it really put in perspective just how big this league still is.
It's a huge league. I'm trying to look through my notes here. Is there anything else?
I have something I'd really like to talk about.
Let's see. I'm annoyed that you had a fourth down and you got drawn off sides below Nichols.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
You knew that they were drawing you off sides. They weren't going for it. You knew that, and you still jumped off sides. That was bad.
All you had to do was sit there.
You had the poor clock management at the end of the first half where it forced you to kick a 55-yard field goal rather than get in for a chip shot, where 55-yard field goal for a Bears kicker is tough. That's not a gimme by any stretch. And luckily they hit it, but that really, that should have been either a closer one or you should have been going for a touchdown. And it was bad clock management and terrible play calling. Let's see.
Well, I had the one thing I really want to talk about you just mentioned that I want to go on just a little bit about.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, that 55-yard kick was a thing of beauty.
It really was. I don't know how you get rid of Cairo Santos when and if Eddie Pinheiro comes back healthy.
And that's what I wanted to talk about. Look, he's missed 2 so far, but he's made everything else. And look, I know what all that matters is getting it between the uprights. But, man, I watched Cairo Santos. He's nailing these kicks. He outside the 2 he missed, I mean, they are just right down the middle perfect. He's made all of his extra points. He made that 50-plus yarder today, which was a career high. I'm not saying he's Robbie Gould or Adam Vinatieri, but I actually think it is significant to note that your current kicker, who was your quote-unquote backup before Pinheiro went to the IR, you might actually be able to trust him now. And that can maybe affect the way you run your offense a bit, because for the first few games, you're thinking, if we got to get into field goal range, we got to get inside the 20-yard line. I mean, there's just no question about that. Now you've built some confidence with him. He made the 55-yarder today, and then the Thursday night game against Tampa Bay, he hit all the field goals, including the game winner, which was over 40 yards, if I remember correctly. I think it was like 46. So you actually have somebody that's been overall kicking well outside 2 bad missed field goals. He's 83% on the year. He's made 10 of 12. You might actually be having a confident kicker you can trust somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Pinheiro did some good things, but has he done enough where you're like, well, we definitely have to have him back when he's healthy, and we're just biding our time? Like, Cairo Santos was a respected guy, was a good kicker. Like, he's making his kicks. I don't know how you could take the job away from him. And I don't know what the status of Eddie Pinheiro is. But I feel like, Eddie Pinheiro should go to the practice squad, and you keep Cairo Santos if that's the route you're going to take.
If Santos keeps nailing these, I don't see why you don't. Because like I said, he's nailing these kicks for the most part. Like, it's where it leaves the foot, and you don't do that thing where, like, you kind of retch a little bit as it goes up and it kind of teeters for. He kicks it, it just goes straight through the uprights.
Yeah, I mean, I have had very little complaints about Cairo Santos, and it's been a number of years before I've had this little complaints about a kicker so far for the Chicago Bears kicker. I don't understand. I think this has to be a keeper of the kicker.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, man, that 55-yarder, that was just a beautiful kick. Because I'm thinking, oh God, we have to kick over 50 yards, and then just boom. I mean, there wasn't any gasp. There wasn't any, does it have enough? It was just right down the middle, bullseye perfect.
To segue a little bit, I don't know if you're watching the Rams 49ers game, or are you watching the World Series?
I'm paying attention to the NLCS right now.
As I flipped on the football game, and they call the fumble. So this goes back to the poor officiating. So the 49ers running back ran the ball, and watching the game, like, was completely on the ground. Somebody knocked the ball out of his hand, and then the Rams player picked it up and started running with it, and they ruled it a fumble on the field. I'm like, man, that was a bad call. And then it went through 2 different commercial breaks, plus an awkward amount of time where they were just showing the coaches yelling at the officials before they could review it. And they showed the replay like 10 times. He had 1 knee hit, 2 knees hit, fell on his elbow, went on his back and slid. And then as he was trying to get up, they knocked the ball out of his hand. Like, that guy was down for a good 5 seconds before that, and with 2 hands on the ball. Like, that ball didn't even bobble, and they called it a fumble. I'm like, wow. Without officiating, that would have been so blatantly bad.
Yeah.
Sorry to segue. I just pointing out that it's not just against the Bears. There's some bad officiating in this league.
Oh yeah. I mean, every week there's always controversy.
But yeah, I like Cairo Santos. I have no problem. I don't dislike Eddie Pinheiro, but why take away a guy's job when he's doing his job well?
Right. I mean, like I said, Eddie Pinheiro he's a solid but replaceable kicker. He's not terrible like, the Bears version of Cody Parkey, but he's not in prime Robbie Gould or Adam Vinatieri or Sebastian Janikowski. He's a guy that you say, you know what? If nothing's else working, then we can trust you. You've been overall solid for us. But if something else is working, you don't have to be like, well, we're missing out on Eddie Pinheiro. That's not how it works with this situation. If Cairo Santos continues to play well, just keep him there.
A couple things I made notes of. That the Bears scored their first points of any third quarter in any game so far in this game.
Yeah, that was the QB sneak. Again, it was like pulling teeth, but they finally did it.
Yeah, and going into this game, the Bears were last in the NFL in number of points scored in the third quarter and first in the NFL in points scored in the fourth quarter.
Yikes. That's just so weird.
It's frustrating. And that just points to the fact that they're scoring points in the fourth quarter and not the third. Is their halftime adjustments are not good. They're too predictable, too conservative, and in the fourth quarter when they have to open things up, that's when good things are happening.
Yep.
Why aren't they opening it up and trying to take some shots and call the game like you're down by 14 late in the fourth quarter? Call the whole game like that. This defense I could live with more mistakes when they're actually scoring points, because this defense can negate a lot of mistakes. But this defense now is compensating for the fact that you're not putting any points up. If you could put some points up and you had some mistakes to go along with it, this defense can hold those mistakes to minimal points, and just having those extra points on the scoreboard on your offensive side just makes life easier.
Yeah, well, the Bears don't like making life easier.
They don't. I want to watch a game where they're winning as a laugher. I just want to watch a game like that.
Yeah, remember a few years ago when in 2018 when we played the Lions at Soldier Field and we played Tampa Bay at Soldier Field, and they were just butt whoopings. You could just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Yeah, I miss those. I miss those types of wins.
And the other thing I noted was the Bears are now 3-0 on the road this season, and it's the first time they've been 3-0 on the road to start a season since 2006.
Yeah, that's impressive. It's not easy to win on the road in the NFL.
It's probably easier now that there's no fans in the crowd.
Oh, absolutely.
But still, you're winning games on the road. And you know what? This team, are they the best 5-1 team? No.
No.
But they're winning games, and there's a lot of room for improvement. But this defense is really good. This defense can keep you in games that otherwise should be blowouts. And the offense, if you can just figure out a way to make this offense just mediocre.
I'd take mediocre at this point.
Just make it mediocre, and you could just be an actual legitimate team.
Mm-hmm. Average is all we really need.
Yeah. But looking ahead at their schedule, we've got the Rams next up, and man, Aaron Donald scares the crap out of me with how bad this offensive line is.
That's going to be an issue.
It's going to be a big issue. They're not going to be able to run the ball, and they're going to have that pocket is going to get collapsed.
I say we all just lock arms on the offensive line and just make a wall.
You've got a tough stretch of games here. Is the Rams, then the Saints, then the Titans, and good grief, do the Titans look good?
This is potentially going to be where the Bears show who they really are.
Then you get a better manageable schedule. The Vikings, you get the Packers, but you know what? The Packers showed today that they're beatable.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be a tough beat, no doubt, but they're not this invincible entity.
I mean, honestly, the minimal amount I saw of them this season, and the way that they were being talked about in the national media, you're like, oh my God, this is a juggernaut team that is just going to march their way to the Super Bowl. And you watched them, a team that the Bears beat last week, just manhandle them.
Yeah, that was an ass whooping this afternoon.
You saw Aaron Rodgers look bad.
Yeah. Frustrated too.
And, so you're like, sure, I don't expect the Bears to beat them 38-10 by any stretch.
No.
But
I wish.
there's a template how to beat them and the things to do. So, they are beatable. They've been beaten. Vikings just look bad.
Oh yeah, that's a disaster. I mean, that's just not bad. That is disastrous right now.
They get the Vikings, then the Packers, then the Lions again. And you got to feel confident there. You get the Texans, which that team just gives up a lot of points.
Yeah, they don't look so hot.
They don't look very good. Then you get the Vikings again, then the Jaguars, then the Packers again. I mean, so if you can win one of the next three, which I'm guessing of the three, probably the Saints are the most likely to beat because they've come down to earth. Drew Brees is looking old.
The defense isn't nearly as good.
Yeah, so you're 5-1 now. So if you're 6-3 coming out of that stretch,
I'd take that.
beat the Vikings, you're 7-3. Say lose to Packers, 7-4. Beat the Lions and the Texans, 9-4. You can have a real good record here if you can cobble together a win in these next three games. My concern is that there's three tough games in a row.
Yeah, they're all bunched together.
I mean, the Vikings made this a much more manageable stretch because you were looking at a 5-game stretch here. If the Vikings were what they said they were going to be, you were looking at a 5-game tough stretch of Rams, Saints, Titans, Vikings, Packers. But we talked about before that going into that tough stretch, you sort of needed to win today to make sure that you don't fall to a really bad record if you lose 3 in a row in that stretch. And they did. They did that. They're 5-1. And that's a good position to be in. For a lot of people will beat them up and say, hey, this is not a good 5-1 team. But would you rather be a bad or a mediocre 5-1 team or a good 1-5 team that just hit some bad luck? I think
the answer is
pretty simple.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll take 5 wins no matter what because you can always fix mistakes and try to get better. But if you're like, it's just a couple little things, one play here, one play there, and suddenly we're 1-5, you can't really overcome that 1-5 deficit. But you can fix things on the fly to be a better 5-1 team.
Yeah.
This Rams game is going to be tough. I think if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to get a lot of pressure on Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean they're going to know that the Bears run defense, struggles, and they're going to try to bring the heat there. So they're going to have a full book on the Bears, and it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be really tough.
It's going to be a tough game, yeah. I honestly, and it's in Los Angeles, so it's another road game. It's a Monday night game. I'm hoping Nick Foles just can come out and shine in a big time performance because I don't think that guy gets shaken by the pressure at all.
No, that's one thing. He's calm as a cucumber.
He really is. You just listen to him talk, and you're like, this guy sounds like an NPR host. Just nothing rattles him.
Kind of like Kyle Hendricks, that same just blank face. Game 7 of the World Series, it looked like he was starting a spring training game.
So do you have anything else Bears that you wanted to talk?
No, I think I've pretty much said everything. Happy 5-1. We get to enjoy this week in first place.
Yeah. So I guess the next thing I want to talk about is, we all know that the White Sox fired Ricky Renteria or however they want to call it. They parted
Mutually
ways.
parted ways.
Yeah, whatever they want to call it. And we all know that. And, we've talked here and there about, all right, what could be some managerial candidates. And then one just came out of the woodwork, and I would never have believed it if it wasn't for Bob Nightingale insisting that this was a legitimate candidate. 76-year-old Tony LaRussa.
I don't think he's not going to be their next manager. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Right? I mean, come on.
What would be the most Jerry Reinsdorf thing to do?
Well, it would be hiring Tony LaRussa. Now, there are local sports people insisting that this is Rick Hahn's decision. You just got to hope Rick Hahn doesn't think that hiring Tony LaRussa is a good idea, because I don't see how a dinosaur would work with a young, energetic team that's kind of entered a new era of baseball with a lot more pizzazz and energy and, Tim Anderson bat flips and, Tony LaRussa is wagging his finger at him, telling him to sit down. It would make absolutely no sense. I don't get why you would come this far and then think, it'd be a good idea is let's dig up the corpse of Tony LaRussa, who hasn't managed in almost 10 years.
What was Rick Hahn's criteria for being the next manager of this team?
I would assume not Tony LaRussa. Somebody a bit more modern driven, more analytical.
He was looking for someone with experience winning the World Series, with a winning pedigree. How many people have won more games as a manager than Tony LaRussa?
Not a lot.
Do you know how many?
I don't know an exact number, no.
The exact number is 2. Connie Mack and John McGraw.
He's won more than Sparky Anderson and Joe Torre.
And Bobby Cox.
Wow.
The list goes like this. Number 1 by a mile is Connie Mack.
Yeah.
Number 2 is John McGraw.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 is Tony LaRussa. Number 4 is Bobby Cox. 5 is Joe Torre. 6, Sparky Anderson. 7, Bucky Harris. 8, Joe McCarthy. 9, Walter Alston. 10, Leo DeRocher.
Casey Stengel is in top 10, huh?
Casey Stengel is 12, behind Bruce Bochy.
Oh.
Dusty Baker is 15.
Yeah. Well, he's been around a while.
Yeah, he didn't, he's just ahead of Lou Piniella.
Sweet Lou.
So, I mean, the guy does have a winning pedigree. He has 3 World Series titles, 6 league championships, and 12 division titles.
But he's ancient, and he hasn't managed in almost a decade.
But it's not like he hasn't been around baseball operations.
Right, but you haven't actually been down there. I mean, managing the game is very different than being in baseball operations.
Listen, would he be my choice? at 76 years old? No. But I'm trying to look at the positives and the bright side of things for once in my life. And I'm looking at it like this, is where have the White Sox struggled? It has been in-game decisions like managing your bullpen. Tony LaRussa can manage a bullpen. Tony LaRussa he could go in there and flash World Series rings and you know, you've already got a wildly talented team. If you could just tweak a few things and instill a winning attitude and a winning atmosphere in that organization, you know, you couple that with, you know, what Dallas Keuchel brings as far as that leadership and experience as a player, you feel like maybe that was what gets him over the edge. You know, not too many people are going to outmanage Tony LaRussa, whereas Ricky Renteria, very good teacher. They probably will like Ricky Renteria as as the players, they probably will like Ricky Renteria as a man more. Tony LaRussa, you know, a lot of his views are not the most modern. You know, I wonder what he's going to think about Tim Anderson's bat flips, but it's going to be hard to argue with that man making.
But does he have the mental capacity at 76 years old to do that now? Is he mentally sharp enough to even do that at this point in his life? I mean, again, he hasn't managed in almost 10 years. He's a few years away from 80 years old. And you're managing a team of mid-20-year-olds. Is he even going to have the mental capacity to be able to keep all that stuff straight at this point?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't. But you know what? Crotchiness keeps you young.
With this team? You bat flipping and doing all this high energetic stuff, you really think that's going to clash well with a dinosaur like Tony LaRussa?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So why are they considering this? It's madness to me.
I mean, honestly, I wonder if this was like a big smoke screen to that the real guy is AJ Hinch. And they're like, well, we can't just be like, that's our guy because of the whole cheating thing. And if he's the guy and we just go right to him, you know, that creates a lot of people looking at us, a lot of eyes on us. But what if we bring in Tony LaRussa and we're like, this might be the guy, and everybody goes, what the hell? And then we're like, oh no, just kidding, it's AJ Hinch. You're like, okay, all right, as long as it's not Tony LaRussa, we're good.
Well, that could very well be, because this seems so outlandish, and I can't believe at this point that they'd actually be serious about bringing in the rotting corpse of Tony LaRussa, who probably still has a stinking breath of alcohol and booze on him. When I saw that report, at first I'm like, okay, this is Bob Nightingale just pot-stirring bullcrap. But when you saw other people talking about how serious it is, I'm like, wait, they're actually considering this? Now, it would be one thing if you would say bring Tony LaRussa in to be part of the organization. That's different. But to be the manager...
Honestly, my biggest concern, I think, with him would be, is he going to work well with Rick Hahn, who has done a very good job with this team? Or is he just going to be like, F you, I'm doing it my way. Glug, 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 glug.
He's got a big old thing of moonshine.
He is like the coach from the Bad News Bears. He just shows up drunk and yells at everybody, but then gets them to win at the end.
He could be kind of like Jimmy Dugan too from League of Their Own.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, he's that guy. Just drunkenly shows up, yells racist and sexist things, and And then the team comes together and wins. And he's like, that's what I brought to this team, my winning experience. Glug, glug, glug.
Where's the early bird special?
When this story was posted on Bleacher Report, the very first comment on the article was one of my favorite. It says, "For the sake of the White Sox, I hope LaRussa still has a little lead left in his pencil."
Man. We'll see, man. We'll see.
I don't know. I still think it's going to be Cora or AJ Hinch, but this was a shocker. Like I told a few White Sox fans when I heard the news, like I was like, I saw the Bob Nightingale report come through, and I messaged a few people, and nobody believed me. Like, yeah, right. I'm like, nope, Bob Nightingale reported. And they were like, wait, what? And, I don't know how accurate it is or where they're at with this, but the fact that they just dusted off Tony LaRussa and brought him in for an interview.
They're going to send a drone over to Guaranteed Rate Field, and he's just going to be sitting on a bench right outside, just downing like some Jack Daniels or something, just kind of sitting there.
In the parking lot, sitting on sitting on the hood of a Trans Am. Firebird. God. So, I mean, I hope the White Sox get it right, because they really got a good team there. And this, you can get pretty much any manager you want. It's finding the guy that's going to take you there. And I think Rick Hahn's criteria of somebody with a winning experience, and that's what the Cubs did. They got the guy to be the teacher, and then they brought in the guy that they felt had the winning pedigree, was going to get him over the edge. And that's really what the White Sox are doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. They're in that same spot.
I just hope they get the right guy and he leads them there. But oof.
Yeah, we'll see we'll see what happens there.
I mean, honestly, what would be amazing if they could lure Bruce Bochy out of retirement, because he's a great manager and he doesn't come with any of the baggage that Hinch and Cora come with, and not nearly as old as LaRussa.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Bruce Bochy he's like he's like some sort of enigma. Like he's like a hard-nosed baseball guy, but like players love playing for him. So he's like that balancing act of both sides of things. He's hard-nosed, but a player's manager. I think that would be a coup if they could pull him out of retirement.
That would be something. That would be much better than Tony LaRussa right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. Plus, I really like Bruce Bochy, so it'd be
he's
nice
a likable guy.
I think it would be nice to have him in town. Yeah. Look at the amazing things he did with those Giants teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think. Is there anything else going on? There's nothing really with the Cubs.
No, it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. Nobody knows what's going to happen there with some of these core players, and that's a lot of uncertainty there.
You're nothing really with the Blackhawks.
They did sign somebody, but former Dallas player, I think. I don't even remember his name, because we already talked about the Saad trade, obviously. And, the team's just kind of in a weird spot.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's my frustration is I get it. Like, I want to see this team win too. Like, I love the Blackhawks. I love watching winning hockey. It's tough to watch losing hockey. It's tough to watch losing sports in general. But the fact is that the high price talent is not bringing them the results that they need, and they're in a cap crunch. They need to get better. And you can keep trying to piece things together, but you're essentially just robbing Peter to pay Paul. And is it worth having a disastrous block of time in the near future for a longer time in order to make a run at the playoffs where you're not going to win anyway? I don't think so. I think it's time to be like, you know what? We have to focus on the future. Like, Corey Crawford is probably going to be my all-time favorite Blackhawk player, and sad to see him go after all these years. But the Blackhawks have to make decisions. You know, would I rather them pay Corey Crawford and then, lose out on a guy that's going to be a core player like Dominic Kubalik? Like, who would I rather have in 2020 for the 2020-21 season? Of course, I would rather have Kubalik than Corey Crawford.
Well, at this point, I think so. A few years ago, I might say differently because he was helping us winning games. But right now, your focus is trying to develop new talent, younger talent, because, Crawford balled out in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. But, when you get old, you get old.
And this is not a knock on Corey Crawford. Brent Seabrook was hugely important in 3 Stanley Cup victories. But you know what? In this year, he's not worth anything. Like, he's a detriment to your team because he's not bringing you any good play on the ice, and he's killing you on your financials.
Yeah.
So
their cap situation is awful.
Yeah. So you look at it and Corey Crawford, what happened in the past does not matter. You have to look at it from a future lens. You can't be like, we love Corey Crawford, we want to keep him. If he can't take a certain salary, you got to move on. And that's sort of the business. And if Jonathan Toews wanted him to stay so much, then maybe Jonathan Toews could have paid him some of his salary to stay on the team.
It would have been a lot easier too, with this situation had you been grooming somebody as the next future goaltender for the Blackhawks, and that just wasn't happening. You thought a few years ago Colin Delia was going to be that next guy up, and he just hasn't really proven that yet. You don't really know what you have in Malcolm Subban fully. He just doesn't have that much NHL time yet. And then, before you drafted, the cupboard was pretty much bare for goaltenders in the system that actually looked like they could be NHL caliber players. So the fact that the cupboard was dry before you drafted with the Corey Crawford situation hurt even more. Because at least you could have said, okay, we got this new young kid coming up. We'll put our asset focus somewhere else. Maybe we'll sign a really cheap veteran, and then we'll bring this kid up, as we continue to groom him. But, you just drafted a goaltender, so he's not going to be up for some time.
The goalie position is one where you can really groom somebody. Unlike some of the other positions where you can coach them up. But if you look at goalies, the guys that are just the old school type goalie just doesn't exist. Is most guys are very formulaic. When the offensive player does this, they go into this position. When they come here, they do this, you go into the butterfly. They're very formulaic in the way that they defend, and you sort of just train them, and it's whoever just has the fast twitch muscle and the ability to do it, and the vision to be able to foresee that, who is the one who's going to come about. But you sort of need to groom those guys so you have one that's going to be able to take the mantle when you lose your goalie, or you can't afford them, or they retire, or whatever the case may be. And the Blackhawks have been bad about not having one in the pipeline. And that's sort of an inexcusable crime. Like, that's just something you're just like, how do you not have goalies in the pipeline?
Yeah.
And that's one of the more frustrating things is giving out bad contracts. That sucks. And sometimes when you're winning, you end up overpaying guys and you have some loyalty to guys and whatever the case may be. You can sort of forgive and understand bad contracts, but you can't understand just not having a goalie in the system.
Well, yeah, and especially when you knew that your current goalie's time was running out and you knew that your financial situation that you got yourself into was already not in great shape.
Yeah, so that's the frustrating part. And that's one of those things is like, how haven't they fired Stan Bowman? And that's just one of the inexcusables. Like, for all the reasons you have to fire him, like that just seems like the smoking, like the smoking gun. That's the right there. That's the thing you get him for.
Some people were talking, and I think it is a fair question. Something to think about. I'm not saying this is an excuse for Stan Bowman, but there is, some talk and theories that some of these decisions, hockey-wise, that often get pinned on Stan Bowman, which obviously he had to carry it out. But there's some people saying that John McDonough was kind of the mastermind by some of these decisions. And that could very well be. I still think that we need to move on from Bowman. I absolutely think they need to move on from Bowman. There is no question in my mind they have to. But there are some things that I think might be kind of more of a John McDonough issue that we didn't really know about, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a possibility. That's a possibility. But I mean, here's the thing: is they won their titles. They're on the down tilt, and they haven't hit bottom yet. Before they come back up and is an up and coming team, they haven't hit that bottom yet.
Right.
So you've already started to clean house. You got rid of arguably one of the best head coaches of all time in Quenneville, a Hall of Famer. You got rid of him. You got rid of McDonough. So why don't you just clean house and has Stan Bowman done enough where you're like, well, this is the guy? Or is it that they're trying not to have so much change at once and they're going to wait to replace McDonough and get everything more, I guess, better footed and more stabilized in the front office, then move on to replace the general manager? Is that the you go one more year with Bowman and then clean house? I don't know. I just don't understand how you can fire McDonough and Quenneville and keep Bowman.
I think that my theory is that it has a lot of personal reasons. There was talks and rumors that there were some personal differences between ownership and McDonough, and they just decided, it's probably best that we move on. I wonder if it's more of a personal loyalty thing that, that Bowman is, I don't want to say a suck up or anything, but is on the Wirtz's good side. I don't know. I'm just completely guessing with that. Sometimes when you see these things happen, you can't help if there's personal reasons behind it. Whether it's personal reasons bad, personal reasons good. I don't want to fire my friend, and yeah, you did good things for me, but there are some things I don't like about you, so you're gone. I don't know. I really don't know.
That's just a bad way to run business. I mean, it's good to have some loyalty, but how do you have loyalty to the point of being detrimental to your business?
Well, look at the Reinsdorfs. Look at the McCaskies. Look at Ted Phillips. It's nothing we haven't seen in this city before. And this is gonna make you wonder one thing. look, really big guy on Rocky Wirtz. He fixed all the sins of his father, and there were a lot of sins, and he turned them into Chicago's next dynasty. I just wonder what it's going to be like moving forward. Is he going to be progressive thinking, or is he going to kind of lax a bit and say, we won those 3 cups, we're making a bunch of money now. I don't know. Again, I'm totally speculating and just wondering things based on guesses and speculation. It's just, the past few years is the first time where Rocky Wirtz has to deal with, we had something great and now it's not working like it did. When he took over, it was let's finish rebuilding, let's fix all the problems, and then it went to just winning. And now we're at neither of those stages. And that's not something Rocky Wirtz has dealt with before. So how he handles it is going to be interesting. It's not like the McCaskies, who've been, obviously the owners forever, going back to Hallis. It's not, the Reinsdorfs have owned the Bulls and the Sox for decades. Obviously, the Wirtz family has owned the Blackhawks for a long time, but Rocky Wirtz is obviously not like his father. And he has been in charge since, 2007? So, he's not Virginia McCaskey, who's 90-plus years old. So I just wonder what's going to happen here with all that.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's a head scratcher, and I don't know what this team, how you go from here is what, you haven't been bad enough to get top picks. You have a bad cap situation, so you really need guys contributing on entry level deals to make this work until you can get some of these contracts off your books. I don't know, man. This is just a tough situation. How do you proceed from here?
I don't know. You're in cap hell. You got problems. It's not an easy solution. If you didn't have so much tied up in the cap and you had movable contracts so we could get value, you say we could sell off and we can do a full rebuild. It's not that easy. Because teams are not going to want to take on that contract. They have no full movement clauses as it is. And some of these guys are, like Brent Seabrook, are way past their prime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at some of these contracts here. Is you're going to have to pay Kirby Dach in 2 more seasons. So you get a couple seasons left of him making very little money. You have to make a decision on what you're going to do with Dylan Strome now.
I don't think he's really worth it.
I don't either, but I guess it sort of depends on how much you can get him for and how much is a replacement. You've got 3 more seasons of Duncan Keith at 5.5. And you've got 4 more seasons of Brent Seabrook at 6.875. So you're in cap hell. And then, not to mention you've got 3 more seasons of Kane and Taves making $10.5 million a year each. Mm-hmm. So you've essentially got 3 more seasons in cap hell before you're out of it.
Yeah. If it was just 1 more year, you'd say, all right, let's just bite the bullet this year. We'll just try to do what we can. And then the next year things will change. But when it's multiple years, that makes things a little trickier.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm all for the fact that, Crawford, they didn't keep him, because what good does that do? If he has a great season, then it basically masks some of the problems that the Blackhawks have. But if he has a bad season, then you're like, well, crap, we just got locked into having this guy whose age caught up to. And neither one of those are good positions to be in.
No, I mean, Corey Crawford, we owe him the world for what he did for the Blackhawks, but they weren't going to pay him over $2 million, at age 35 with concussion issues.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to lose, you might as well lose hard and try to get the opportunity to win the lottery and get one of the top picks. And it's much better to do that with Colin Delia making $1 million a year and Malcolm Subban making $850.
That might give you a legitimate chance to somewhat tank. You're not going to be awful, but you're not going to be a playoff caliber team that could go on a long run.
I mean, maybe those two goalies you could get away with if you had elite blue liners in front of you.
Sure.
But you don't. So, yeah, I mean, that could. But if you're going to lose, might as well lose cheaply and not lock up those, all these guys to big money. Get out of the salary cap hell. But I mean, you're years away from that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they'll get out of some of the money with trading away Saad. Zadorov only has the one more year on his contract.
It's not saving that much money though. It's like $1.8 million they're actually saving.
No. I'm saying is after this year.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The contract goes off the books, so you essentially then you don't have Saad and you don't have Zadorov. So, that's money there.
Right.
You got 2 more years of DeHaan, 2 more years of Connor Murphy. I mean, honestly, your only hope, and you got 2 more years of almost $4 million a year, Andrew Shaw. That's brutal. So right now on long-term IR, you have almost $11 million in salary.
Yeah.
Between 2 players. And a total of 6 years, 4 years of one and 2 years of the other.
And remember the cap ceiling didn't grow like people thought it would not too long ago, so that makes things even harder.
I mean, with the NHL, you can't. The NFL and the NBA, you can anticipate growth in the cap because of the way the league is growing. The NHL is in if MLB had a cap, both of those you wouldn't expect the growth. So to count on those teams or the NHL having growth in your cap, that's kind of a fallacy. Like NBA and NFL, you expect it. You're like, wow, the cap's going to go up. I'm going to have this, and you build that in. But the NHL, you don't. It's kind of a when that new cap number comes out, everyone goes, all right, well, what are we going to get here? And you don't know. It's a little bit unexpected. You could have a guess, but man, and it's not until the end. And who knows what it's going to be next year?
Yeah, it's unpredictable.
So, I mean, that makes it worse that you don't even have the growth of the league to kind of help bail you out of your cap situation. And it's not like the NFL where you can cut players where they're non-guaranteed contract. These are guaranteed contracts. So it's just like you're stuck. You can't trade them because they have full no movement clauses. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know how you get out of this. Do you take the bullet and if somebody's willing to make a trade exception, do you move on from a guy like Patrick Kane where you can get trade value for him and knowing it's going to hurt your team just to get some cap flexibility and draft picks to hopefully build up in the future?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at a more full rebuild, then yes, but it's really hard to just want to trade Patrick Kane. If you're trading Patrick Kane, you'd want to try to trade as many people as you could. Obviously, the no movement clause has an effect on a number of those core players, but boy, if they trade Patrick Kane, then that to me would be telling me it's more of a full-blown rebuild.
I mean, that's sort of where you got to be, because otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what
You got to be absolutely sure you're getting what you think you need for Patrick Kane. That's a generational talent.
But realistically, while they're in financial cap hell, they're just sort of treading water. They're going to be a team with, without Crawford, they might be bad. But if Delia or Malcolm Subban can be meh, if the defense takes a step forward with some of the young players, I mean, this is probably a middle of the road team.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. Yep. They make the playoffs with an expanded roster, or if there's
they
some
missed
top
by 5 points.
Yeah, there's they're going to be in that range of just missing the playoffs to just scraping in, probably. And they're going to have to, at best, be that team for the next several years. And, looking at the guys that have these bloated contracts and ranking them by tradability is Patrick Kane is the only one that's just like a absolute. You could still trade and get something for him, even with that bloated contract.
Yeah, because he's still super good. Yeah.
How much trade value do you give for Alex DeBrincat at 6.4 average value?
Well, last year hurt him.
Last year hurt him a lot. Duncan Keith probably has some trade value at $5.5 million because the minutes he can absorb, and he can still play at a fairly high level.
He wasn't awful last year. He was decent for his age.
If he would be making $3.5 million or even $4 million, you'd be like, okay, we can live with this guy, no problem. But that Brent Seabrook has absolutely just zero ability to be traded. He's got the no movement clause. Nobody wants him. You would have to, in order to get somebody to take him, you would have to give them a lot.
Yeah.
He hurts your team in order to trade that contract. It's funny. I have a friend on Facebook who's a big hockey guy, and he posted something about it, and it just sort of got to the amnesty buyouts and I was like, man, I'm just praying that the NHL gives each team a buyout. And somebody was just like, yeah, no, they're not going to bail anybody out. They're like, you're only going to get that once in a collective bargaining agreement year. And I'm just like, I realize that, but realistically, I was hoping with the whole COVID thing that there would be, when the salary cap, that you could get one-time relief. And that if the Blackhawks could get that one time, just be like, nope, we're going to amnesty, then the ability to get rid of that Brent Seabrook, almost $7 million a year, would just be so monumental.
Yeah, it absolutely would be. It would be. That's so much money right there.
That and not re-signing Crawford, and you're like, okay, we're still not in a good cap situation, but man, we're in a situation where we actually can, breathe a little bit.
Better than we are now, where there's not a noose around the neck. You squeezing tight, you got no money.
Man, that was bad base running by the Braves right there.
I'm a little behind on the feed, so.
Oh yeah, I will not say what happened then. It just
how many outs were recorded?
You will know when you see it. You'll go, oof.
Because I'm following on game day. It just says in play outs.
Yeah. So I think they're out of the inning now.
Already? Goodness gracious.
Oh no, sorry, that was 2 outs. They threw out a guy at home, and then the guy from second tried to make it to third, and he got thrown out after the tag.
Wow, the Braves keep choking away these big scoring opportunities. If they wouldn't have done it, they would have won the series already. They're going to regret not getting more in that situation.
I mean, depending on how this game goes, my prediction was Braves and Rays in the World Series. And so that would have been my first time predicting both teams in the World Series in a long time. So I'm rooting for Atlanta on this one just so my prediction can hold true.
Yeah, they're out of the inning now. Jeez, that was a golden opportunity to get multiple runs. That's good. That's going to bite them. I think the Dodgers are winning this game. You'll probably listen to this, and I might be wrong, but yeah, my prediction right now, going to the bottom of the fourth, is the Dodgers are going to win this game.
Listen to this. Alex guaranteed that the Dodgers were going to win. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
He said you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a cow's ass, or you could take the butcher's word for it.
Nah.
But is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Follow or share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.